saint, a demon, and a tiger would like to take 20 seconds of silence to start the show this week.
What do you say? We're on.
We're on. Jesus. Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone.
Yeah. After what I think everyone would admit would be one of the strangest weekends of footy we've ever experienced.
Definitely nothing like that has ever happened to our sport.
No, I don't think so.
Sad enough that it happens in real life. But
yeah, but to happen in the spotlight, I think, and to because I suppose footy for a lot of people can be a bit of an escape.
Yeah,
the romanticism of it.
For me, it is definitely.
For me, it's always been a bit of we've talked about on the show previously how we've both made it personal with footy.
Oh yeah,
and the ramifications of that. But this weekend past, really, footy did become very personal, and I was at the game Friday night.
I was going to say, as a way to kind of put it in reference, we talk about football and we have a bit of fun and we fuck around and we talk shit and all that kind of stuff, but occasionally football and real life collide.
Yeah.
And we can only speak from our own personal experiences, but you've got a really nice anecdote about because you were there.
Yeah.
When a beautiful gesture by the two coaches.
It was really strange. It was as I think someone said on the radio that day. I can't remember who it was, but that everyone in the footy world will know where they were the day it was announced Phil Walsh was murdered.
Mm.
And I think that's true. And and we were talking about this earlier a bit off air. And there's only a few real major shifts
events in
life that that have nothing to do with you. Mm. This outside thing where you're like, I remember where I was that day. And I think in 10, 15, 20 years' time, you'll be able to ask most football supporters, where were you on the day Phil Walsh was murdered, and people will give you the answer. But even I was always going to the game on Friday night
because you're going with
Bridge, because it was a Hawthorn Collingwood game. Yeah. She'd only been to a couple of Hawthorn games,
which is a great game.
So she wanted to go, and it was an amazing game.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing game. Now, and we got there quite late, but earlier in the day, we didn't even know if it was going to go ahead.
Yeah.
we were texting in the middle of the day about how sad it was and how stuff like that, but also at the same time, we're like, not even sure if the AFL are going to cancel the round. And honestly, if they had have cancelled the round, I think everyone would have been just as understanding as they were. Anyway, we understand why they let it go ahead, but we also would have understood if they called it off.
Well, I think what they did with the Geelong Adelaide game was probably as good as you could probably get it. Because, I mean, like you said before, how would you be being Geelong racing out against Adelaide that day?
Yeah.
I mean, the Adelaide boys, obviously, they're not equipped mentally to have fronted up
to play. Yeah.
Well, they could have. They might have. Who knows? But the gesture that the AFL and Geelong and Adelaide committed to with that split of the points, that shows that with all the bureaucracy and shit that exists, at the end of the day,
at the end of the day, we're all human, and that was what was amazing about the weekend is that if I think that if for any other reason, obviously other than a tragedy, but if a team's song wasn't, if Hawthorn's song wasn't played at the end of that Collingwood game, or if Richmond's song wasn't played for whatever reason, in any other circumstance other than the one we were in, there would have been uproar.
Yeah,
the crowd would have been, cracking
can you describe for us what that was like? Because
you
were there when it was done.
When
first
the first time we got done, and that's the thing. I went to both games. I went to 2 games on the weekend. I went to the Friday night and the Saturday. And the Friday night, the game ended. There was no song. Most people knew that going in, that there'd be no song, and people were pretty much just. It was weird already with that. Yeah. And you could notice I noticed anyway, that the players were still sort of milling around together.
Yeah.
Whereas normally they'd separate. The losers would go straight down the race. But they were all just mingling together.
All the mingling.
And then I saw on the big screen, because we stood up and we were like, we were ready to walk out. Because we were on the 4th level. You got to line up for a fair while to get off the 4th level.
Yeah.
So we stood up and we're in the aisle when then Clarko and Buckley came out. And they took their time because Buckley's dodgy hammy. But they came out into the middle of the ground, and there was 75,000 people on the night at the ground. But I reckon there still would have been a good 70-something thousand there because it was just straight after the game.
Was there an announcement or something?
No, there was no announcement. There was nothing. There was no pre-warning of what might happen, and they all came together in the middle of the ground, and I sort of picked up on what they might be doing. I was like, okay, arm in arm. But then, watching it on the screen, you see them making a point of going Hawthorn, Collingwood player, Hawthorn, Collingwood player. And then the crowd was, yappy. There was a fair bit of noise around the stadium, just chatter of, 75,000 people after the game sort of thing. Yeah. And it took about, I think they had 30 seconds of silence to the players. And I reckon it took about 10 seconds in for the whole crowd to work out what's going on.
Wow.
Apart from a couple of wankers who were whistling.
And did everyone go silent?
But everyone went silent. The whole stadium. And that's the thing. Everyone was walking too. I was standing in the staircase on level 4 and surrounded by people, all these people trying to squish in front of you, and everyone stopped. Not only did they be silent, but, the people that were trying to sneak out as the wave is moving down the staircase and, jump in there, they all stopped. Everyone stopped. I was wearing a beanie, and
did people exchange looks? Like were people kind of
everyone was staring at the ground.
Wow.
I looked around a little bit just before the silence ended, and everyone was looking dead straight at the ground, and a lot of people had that sort of glazed over 1,000-yard stare going on. So that was incredible. And then to be at the Richmond game the next day.
What was that like in comparison? Because obviously
people knew. Yeah. People knew. So almost like after the game, there was a bit of a clap and a cheer for 10, 15 seconds while the players walked around and shook each other's hands. But as soon as the coaches walked out onto the ground and they all started walking over towards the centre circle, the whole G went silent. And they were quieter. They were silent for longer than the players took time to be silent. And it was just this everyone knew to do it. And,
wow.
And being at the game the next day, and everyone was talking about it and how horrifying it was, and I overheard, fathers trying to explain it to their sons, but even the little kids got it. The two kids sitting right in front of me at the Richmond game, when we stood up
on the vibe.
No, but not even picked up. They knew about it. when we stood up to do the minute of silence before the game, and that's one of the eerie sounds because they called for it before the game. It was the chairs. I told you about this off air. Was that as everyone stood up around the ground, it sort of moves in a wave.
Yeah.
So all the people to your right maybe start standing up, and you look over, and everyone's you stand up, and then you hear the noise of the chairs going around the stadium, but nothing else. Because if everyone stood up in the stadium and they were all yelling, when a goal is scored, everyone leaps out of their seats and they cheer. You don't hear the chairs. You don't hear the chairs. You hear the people.
Yeah, I noticed that when there are anthems and stuff, but this is different. This is impromptu. I think that Friday night was really quite amazing. It
was amazing. It set the scene, and it made for a weekend where, especially where there's reports every weekend, there's sledging every weekend, there's verbal jibber jabber amongst supporters. There's potential fights amongst supporters. But at the end of the day, Collingwood and Hawthorn supporters can be silent. The players can take arm in arm. And it happens across the competition, no matter whether you got smashed.
A universal respect is given.
The Essendon and St Kilda game. Essendon got smashed by 110 points, which I'm sure we'll get into when we talk to Marsh, when we actually start talking footy. But 110 point smashing, the last thing most of the time you would want to do is probably hug the blokes that just kicked your ass. But it transcended that entirely. And and you could see on the players' faces, they're all sort of contemplating it,
because football's a community.
It is.
It's a community on different levels, and I was really impressed by the word that I heard of stuff on Facebook. I saw people even at local games.
I went to Will, my youngest brother, Will Duffy. I went to his game, and before the bounce, they had a minute of silence.
And it's amazing because
and there was no one there. That's the thing. There was a couple of club officials there. Me and Bridge were there. There might have been, both benches. I think in total, watching the game, there might have been 30, 40 people. But they still stood in the lines and still did the minute of silence. It didn't mean, it didn't matter if there were 50,000 people in front of you, 100,000 or 10. It really transcended it, and that was,
I remember when we're not going to go on about this the whole night.
Not all night. No, we just want to.
We want to. It was a difficult thing for us to kind of approach too.
Yeah, we weren't sure if we were going to talk about not talk about it at all, or
I don't think it's like. I mean, in terms of an elephant, it's a whale in the room. You can't really, And I think the only way personally I can connect with it was the other night. About a few weeks ago, we were watching 360, and Robbo and the other dude had Phil Walsh on via satellite. And I think we were watching it live. And I remember standing in the kitchen listening to the interview, and then you were on the couch listening to it, and we're hearing Robbo and what's the other guy's name? Jared. They were interviewing him. And through the interview, the nature of his answers was something else. Remember we were kind of saying Phil Walsh is one of those players, or one of those, not players, but one of those personalities at AFL level where you eventually all get a peek on what all the coaches are like in their personal kind of.
And I think he got a lot more than you would from most people in 12 weeks, which maybe speaks to his personality.
Well, it's his first time that he's been that he's on the front stage. He's been working in the background most of his career as a player and as an assistant coach, and to hear the genuine expressions, the down to earth salt of the
I think my favourite thing I heard him say was that after the Fremantle game, and they lost that game by just a little bit. Fremantle ran over and kicked a couple of goals last. But all night, Dangerfield and Fife had gone head to head.
That's right, and he put them together.
It had been a beautiful display. And one of the reporters asked, do you kind of wish you tagged Fife? And he said, I'm not quoting him directly here, but he has said something like that, for the aesthetics of the game, you want to see two of the best players in the competition going at it.
So I gave
that's what I wanted to see. That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
Coaches have a responsibility, to deliver the 4 points each week. But coaches also have a responsibility as caretakers of the game. And it was
what's
the
he
first
say?
Time,
is it the 19th man? Or?
He referenced the 19th man, which is what Adelaide call
the supporters.
The supporters are the 19th man.
And this is the year of the supporter. So, as I I just